You're watching The Community MMA.
What up? This your boy Chris Cross checking in. This is The Community MMA. Welcome to today's podcast. We got a lot of topics to discuss, like Khamzat Chimaev verse. We'll get to that in a moment. We'll break down the dude list and we'll look at some predictions for this Saturday night, which goes down. It'll be called UFC Vegas 77, aka UFC Fight Night. Holm versus Myra Bueno Silva. So some good fights on that card. We'll get to those in just a moment. If you're not watching on YouTube, you're watching on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google Podcasts, wherever you're watching, check us out at youtube.com/The Community MMA for all your fight predictions and reactions that you won't see lined up there in the podcast. So check us out there. Make sure you hit subscribe and do us a favor. Comment on those videos as we get into those comments on most podcasts during the Q&A section toward the end of the podcast. Now, Khamzat Chimaev's next opponent, people are leaking this. They believe it's going to be none other than Cannonier. And I welcome this fight if it does take place. It seems like things have cooled between Khamzat and Kamaru Usman. We saw interviews with Kamaru this past Saturday. Really Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. UFC 290, where he talked about a potential matchup with Khamzat. Says he wants to fight, but for some reason the fight isn't happening. So why is it coming out that Khamzat is going to fight Cannonier? Well, in a video posted, you see Khamzat watching an old fight between Cannonier and Kelvin Gastelum. Now, this would be a big-time middleweight fight. Not the ideal fight. Probably not enough to get him a title shot. Or probably need one more after that. But the reality is Cannonier is still a top 5 middleweight fighter. And if he can go in there and beat him in dominating fashion, like in the first or second round, that can easily line him up for a potential title fight, or at least get him a shot against someone like a Robert Whittaker, or maybe if Dricus du Plessis or Adesanya loses, fight one of those guys to line himself up for a title. But a fight and a win against Cannonier, again in dominating fashion, could give him an opportunity to potentially fight for the title right after that, which will be a best case scenario. Now, again, some of you are out there Khamzat fans, so you're rocking with me, you're riding with me. You understand we've been talking about this since day one. We've been talking about this for 15, 16, 17 months now, in which he's only had one fight during that time with Kevin Holland. And we're eager to see him get back in the octagon because we've only seen him for a total of 2 minutes in the past 15, 16, 17 months now. So we're eager to see him get back in, and we believe he will be at least a 1 belt, more than likely a 2 belt, and possibly a 3 belt champion. You say, Chris Cross, what are you crazy? If you're a Khamzat fan, you understand what I'm talking about. You believe the same thing. If not, you just don't see it yet. And that's the whole point of the show, right? Is we're trying to let you know what's coming and what's going to happen. This past weekend, no one believed that Dricus du Plessis would beat Robert Whittaker, or very few people believed it. We were getting banged up in the comment section. Guess what? Dricus won the fight. Why? Because he had no surgery, he can breathe better, and he probably would have beat Whittaker anyway. It just wouldn't have been as easy. Probably would have been a 3rd round finish instead of a 2nd round finish. So keep that in mind. But Khamzat will return likely at UFC 294. It would be in Abu Dhabi. Cannonier's going to have to fly basically across the world for the fight. Khamzat a little bit closer to that area, so it'll be more suitable for him. He's having visa issues, can't get into the country. Many people were saying this is why the UFC is in no rush, because they want an American-born champion. They want someone at least that can fight in America in front of big crowds. But I'm here to tell you, none of that matters, man. When you got a big-time fighter like Khamzat, none of that matters. Get this guy lined up and ready for a potential title fight. And if he wins the title, look out. And that'll be a nice segue into our next topic, which I promised you was coming. And that's the dude list updated. Right? Of course, we got Khamzat number 1. Someone said in the comment section, how in the world is Khamzat number 1? Those of you that follow the show know these are my favorite fighters. Khamzat number 1. Sky is the limit. Been talking about this guy since the beginning. Those of you that follow the podcast or in the show know this. Okay? Khamzat is the present and the future of the UFC. Make no mistake about it. Now, John Jones is number 2. I don't like that he's fighting Stipe Miocic, but it is what it is. Then you have Islam, number 3. Yuri, number 4. Can't wait for his return. His fight against Jamal Hill is going to be epic. Aljamain Sterling at number 5, fighting Sean O'Malley for the title, saying he's fighting against his will, but he'll still be there. Then you got Adesanya at number 6. He'll be fighting Dricus du Plessis. So Sterling and Adesanya fighting 2 other guys on the do list. Charles Oliveira, still one of the GOATs. Hopefully gets a rematch against Islam. Volkanovski probably will fight the winner between Oliveira and Islam. Then you got Colby Covington at 9, kind of lingering there. He's right ahead of Leon Edwards. So that ought to tell you that I think Colby will beat Leon Edwards. But Colby has slid lately. He was up to number 3 or 4 for a long time and has slid in the do list rankings. Number 11, Jamal Hill. And that hurts because Jamal Hill should be in the top 10. Sean O'Malley, number 12. So you got a 5 versus 12 and Sterling versus O'Malley. Bo Nickel will continue to dominate. Alexa Grasso has a rematch against Shevchenko. Dricus du Plessis at 15 is going to be fighting Adesanya. Then you got Brandon Moreno, Merab Dvalishvili, number 18, Max Holloway. And he should really be in the top 10 as well because he beats everyone not named Volkanovski. Ikram Aliskerov, big fight against Paulo Costa. I cannot wait for that one. And Alex Caceres at number 20 has won 7 of the last 8 fights after starting 14 and 12. He reminds me of a younger Charles Oliveira, peaking at the right time, and the sky is the limit for Alex Caceres. And there's a lot of guys after 20 that could very easily be in the rankings, but they just got to keep winning and prove themselves. But those are my top 20 favorite fighters for the most part, right? Some guys I like a little bit, but they win all the time, so they got to be in there. But for the most part, these are the, if I'm on the street and someone says, hey, Chris Cross, oh, you watch UFC, huh? Who do you like? Well, that's the order that I'm naming guys. I'm telling you, Khamzat, first and foremost. John Jones, he's got to be up there. The guy's basically never lost except by 1 disqualification. He's undefeated. Beyond that, Islam, I think it's a pretty good list. I mean, the top 5 is ridiculous. And I like that Sterling is in the top 5 too, because that's a guy that, you know, everyone thought he would lose to Cejudo, but he's at the prime of his career. He's the best in the bantamweight division. Dvalishvili could present a challenge, but those guys will never fight. So he sits at number 5. And, you know, the do list continues to grow in terms of depth. It's getting harder and harder. I used to update the do list immediately after the pay-per-view event, but now it's taken a few days. So I got to really sit and break it down. And then after this past Saturday night, if you watch UFC 290, you understand your boy was exhausted. I've talked to a lot of people that watch MMA, both at work, both friends, family, and everybody was like, I was wiped out after the Moreno-Pantoja fight, and then realized and forgot, a lot of people forgot that Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez was still on tap after that fight. I mean, what a night. It didn't end until past 1 a.m., and everybody, including myself, was completely exhausted. And I don't know that I've recovered yet, and it's 3 or 4 days later. I mean, it was just very exciting. So you got some good fights coming up this week. UFC Vegas 77, some great fights in the main card. Then you got Jack Della Maddalena getting a fight against a guy who's going to come in on a week's notice. And we're not going to give you that prediction because it's real simple. Jack Della Maddalena is going to dominate. But the fact is, he's waiting for a fight. He needs a payday. He needs to get paid. And we'll have an easy route to getting paid, getting the win bonus, and potentially performance of the night if the UFC goes that route. But I think everyone expects him to win this thing in the first round. So let's begin with the first fight in the main card. You got Nazim Sadikov versus your boy, who I like a lot, Terrence McKinney. Check this out. In the lightweight division at UFC Vegas 77, you got Nazim Sadikov taking on Terrence McKinney, and this is going to be a great fight in a great division. Nazim 8-1, McKinney 13-5. Both guys stand 5'10". They're both in their late 20s. Long career ahead, hopefully for both. Now McKinney, 5-inch reach advantage, 74-69. He's a switch stance fighter. Sadikov stands southpaw, left-handed. 5.2 significant strikes for him. McKinney, 3.8. So that's going to be a difference about anywhere from 10 to 15 in this fight. Now, McKinney does have an advantage on the takedown game, landing 1 takedown per round on average in several UFC fights so far. But Sadikov beat Evan Elder by KO, 3rd round. At the Contender Series, he won also by 3rd round KO. So, a really good fighter. Now, McKinney, on the other hand, 83% takedown defense. He was riding high, really, in the UFC. I mean, he lost to Drew Dober, but he won 3 of 4 going into that one. Or the previous 2 going into that one. He's won 3 and 4 heading into the Ismail Bonfim fight. His last fight, he got KO'd in round 2. So, he's been KO'd twice. That's a problem for him. That's also why he's the underdog in this fight. And this is a tricky one for me because I like Terrence McKinney. But I do believe Nazim wins this fight. I hate to say that, but I got to go with Nazim. I think he's going to defend the takedowns, 80% takedown defense. He's a pretty good striker on the feet, high activity, over about 16 significant strikes per round. Probably will be closer to 20 in this fight, maybe 25, and eventually could get the finish. But I think Nazim wins to move to 9-1. If I'm wrong, I'll eat this one because I do like Terrence McKinney. This fight goes down in a lightweight division at UFC Vegas 77. Yeah, man, it isn't the lightweight division, the best division in the UFC. I say this time and time again. I wasn't a believer at first, and the more I watch lightweight fights, it just gets more and more ridiculous. The competition level is insane. I mean, it's just awesome. And you just never know which way these fights are going to go. Now, if Terrence McKinney was in the do list, he was in the top 20, I'd have to go for him. So I like him, but he's not top 20 material yet. And I don't see him winning a fight against Nazim Sadikov. Again, I'll eat it if he does win because I like him. But Nazim is just on a slightly different level than Terrence McKinney. And therefore, he wins this fight and probably wins it fairly easily. Now, jumping up to the co-main event, you got Albert Duraev taking on Jun Yong Park. And this is a pretty interesting matchup for a co-main event here. It could go either way, but we'll break this thing down. Check it out. In the middleweight division at UFC Vegas 77, co-main event, you got Albert Duraev coming in at 16-4, taking on Jun Yong Park, who comes in at 16-5. So 2 guys with similar records. Park is a slight favorite coming in. Now Duraev 1 inch taller. Both guys still in their prime, 34 years old for Duraev, 32 for Park. Duraev has a 2-inch reach advantage. Both guys stand right-handed. Jun Yong Park, reason why he's the favorite slightly is because he's more active. 4.9 significant strikes per minute to just 2.9 for Duraev. Takedown game still leans to Park. Both guys slightly over 2 takedowns over the course of 3 rounds. So takedown defense will be everything. Duraev 50%, Park 70%. So Park has the advantage in all areas, even if it's just slightly. Now Duraev coming off the win over Chidi and Njokuani by split decision. He got KO'd by Joaquin Buckley and beat Roman Kopylov. Over his last 3 fights, he's 2-1. Now Jun Yong Park, the Iron Turtle, coming off 3 straight wins over Dennis Tulian by submission, Joseph Holmes submission, and Eric Anders by split decision. So I think Duraev is better than Eric Anders, and this is going to be a very, very close fight. But I'm going to lean with the numbers in this fight because they're significant. I mean, Park's going to land 2 more significant strikes per minute. That's about 30 over the course of the fight. He defends the takedowns better. He's likely to try to defend the takedowns and keep this fight standing, and that will be the big question mark. Park may lose a round on control time, but he's going to win the other 2 in the stand-up to get the victory to move to 17-5, in my opinion, middleweight division, UFC Vegas 77. And these are always the tough ones. Whenever you hear me say a guy is going to win 2 of the 3 rounds by decision, I'm not convinced that either one will get the finish. I'm not convinced that they won't, which means it could go either way. But you got to make a prediction. And Jun Yong Park just seems like he's more experienced, has the advantage in this fight. And as long as, he doesn't get hit with a KO or awkward submission or something like that, if it goes to a decision, in my opinion, Jun Yong Park is more likely to win the fight. And that's why I'm going with him. But these are certainly tough predictions. Now, the next fight is not a tough prediction. This is the main event. Holly Holm, Myra Bueno Silva. And with Nunes gone, the winner of this fight could likely get a title fight, especially if Holly Holm can pull this thing off. Check it out. In the women's bantamweight division at UFC Vegas 77, this is your main event. Holly Holm, top-ranked contender still in the bantamweight division, comes in at 15-6. Mayra Bueno Silva is the opponent. She comes in at 10-2. Now, Holly Holm is 2 inches taller at 5'8". She's getting up there in age. She's 41 years old. Bueno Silva, 31. Now, Holly Holm has a 2-inch reach advantage. She fights left-handed. Bueno Silva fights right-handed. Holly Holm, 3.2 significant strikes per minute, but Bueno Silva is more active, 4.2 significant strikes per minute. Holly Holm lands like a takedown every 3 rounds. Bueno Silva, hardly anything to discuss there. Now, Holly Holm, 78% takedown defense, so the preacher's daughter will defend pretty much all takedowns in this fight, you would believe. Coming off the win over Yana Santos by decision after losing to Ketlin Vera by split decision. Very close fight there. Could have easily won that. Before that, beat Irene Aldana and Rockwell Pennington. So she's won 3 of the last 4 and remains at the top. Now, Bueno Silva, 67% takedown defense. She's likely to give up a takedown or 2. Coming off 3 straight wins over Lena Landsberg, submission. Stephanie Agar, submission. And Wu Yanan, decision. So, should this fight go to the ground, Mayra Bueno Silva is certainly capable. But here's the deal. I'm not going against Holly Holm. With Amanda Nunes gone, retired, Holly Holm is in prime position to recapture the belt. She just needs the right opponent. She's got to win this fight, and then she'll look upward. UFC may even give her an opportunity to fight for the vacant belt. Now, Holly Holm will win this fight easily. Forget the numbers here. A lot of times we stick to the numbers in these main event, especially in the main card, because these fighters have a lot of fights, and those averages are pretty solid. But Holly Holm will overcome the numbers here and will dominate this fight. Likely standing up, she'll be more active. She'll move to 16-6. Bueno Silva will fall to 10-3. Women's bantamweight division, UFC Vegas 77. Yeah, there's no way that Holly Holm is losing this fight. And the UFC is known for giving fighters with big names, which Holly Holm still is. She's 41, right? But that doesn't matter. As long as she hasn't significantly slowed down, which the way she trains and her body type, very strong. She's not going to slow down anytime soon. She's got another 3 or 4 years left if she decides to keep fighting that long. And the time is now for Holly Holm. She wins this fight pretty much, not 100%, guarantees a title fight. Even if she's not in the next title fight, she's on deck. She doesn't need another fight after this. The UFC's not going to make her wait till she's 43. She's a big enough name. She can sell tickets. And who's not going to watch if Holly Holm is fighting for the title? I'm watching. You're watching. And that's what we should all be pulling for, is a 41-year-old, maybe 42 or 43 at the time of the title fight, to win the title. That would be epic. And I think that's what could very well happen, because I think Holly Holm, other than Nunes, is still the best in the division. She lost a fight like one of her last 5. It was a split decision or close decision, a fight that I thought she won, and I was highly upset that she didn't get. So I still think she is the best in the division outside of Nunes. And Nunes, if you didn't know, has moved on, has retired. And now it's time for Holly Holm to get the belt back. That's my opinion. I think that's what's going to happen. So we're still tired. We're still exhausted. We got 14, 15 fights this week. The UFC has given us no breaks. We're on a 4-month run. Right now, about 4 or 5 weeks in, 3 months to go. So we don't get a break. In fact, 14, 15 fight card is just ridiculous. After what we saw last week at UFC 290, I'm completely exhausted emotionally, because after witnessing UFC 290, how could you not be? But that's what it is. Big fights continue this week at the Apex Center, the 77th edition of UFC fights on fight night only. That's not even counting some of the pay-per-views that happen. But 77 fight nights in now at the Apex Center. So we look forward to this Saturday night. For now, this your boy, Chris Cross. Remember, check us out, youtube.com/community MMA for all your fight predictions and reactions. Hope you have a great day, and God bless. As always, peace.